Sometimes when you're driving down the road all by yourself, you begin to hear a voice that tells you need to look around, pay attention. Maybe something isn't quite right. That voice is me. It's the voice of Gord. G'day everybody, and welcome to another episode of Voice of Gord, or should I say good morning. I'm recording this intro at 3:30 a.m. on June 1st, foul year of our Lord 2023. Why 3:30 a.m. you ask? Because I'm a busy guy, and I just never get time to do anything. So, on that note, just wanted to let you guys know I'm making some moves in my life to maybe not work so much and try and get some more writing done, get some more podcasts out with a little more regularity. I've been managing one a week, but they don't always come out on Monday, sometimes Wednesdays. Today is going to be a Thursday. I'm looking to get a little bit more consistency with that and get some more writing projects in. There's just so much I would like to say and comment on. The world's a pretty crazy place. Lots of happening in the world of trucking and technology and regulatory agencies. There's just so much out there. I'm really hoping in the near future to get more content to you guys. On today's episode, we're going to hear from a very lovely woman I met at the Mid-America Truck Show. Goes by the name of Miss Flatbed Red. She's a sketch artist, a multi-talented musician, a piano teacher, just a really nice lady, and she's sort of made a name for herself making really beautiful sketch photos of guys' trucks. And she has a YouTube channel where she takes you on tours of custom older rigs. She's a member of the American Truck Historical Society, just an all-around great lady and wonderful booster for the trucking industry and specifically for old trucks. Her and I had a nice long discussion about her life and her art and the aesthetics of older trucks and how they are so far superior to everything the manufacturers put out today. Coming up next week on Voice of Gord, I've got a couple of shows for you. Few of them here waiting to be edited. I really want to get these two out, so I'm making a promise to y'all and myself that I'm going to get two of them. First up is Granny McKay. Margaret McKay has turned out to be one of the very few advocates out there for some gentlemen being held in prison by the Canadian government. You might know them as the Coots Four. They were rounded up near the end of the blockade at Coots, Alberta during Freedom Convoy, and in prison they remain. Very shameful episode of government malfeasance in Canada, and Margaret's going to tell us all about it. Also, I'm hoping to get out a show with my Uncle Chris, who is 79 years old and a founder of one of Canada's first freight brokerages way back in 1984 when freight brokerages became a thing you could do post-deregulation of the trucking industry. My Uncle Chris and I had a nice long chat, and you don't get to hear too many people of his vintage and mileage, as it were, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy that conversation. All right, well, let's get to it, shall we? On to Miss Flatbed Red. G'day, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Voice of Gord. I'm Gord. This is my voice. The other voice you're going to hear today is of a very lovely woman from Ohio, artist, musician, and someone I met at the Mid-America Trucking Show who makes really incredible sketches and drawings of mostly older trucks. And I've come to find out she's got quite the online presence and has been making just a ton of prints and paintings, and she works with the American Truck Historical Society. Just an all-around cool lady. Welcome, Miss Flatbed Red.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Right. So first off, how'd you get the name Flatbed Red?
Honestly, it was just a matter of I knew I was going to be going to truck shows, and back then I was drawing outside, sitting outside looking at the trucks, and I wanted to have some little catchy name for my social media to post pictures of me working. So I was literally brainstorming with my husband, trying to come up with a name that wasn't taken already. So anything like with the word diesel in it or whatever was already taken. So I'm checking websites or what domain names are available, checking what Instagram handles are available. And after I think it took 2 or 3 weeks, I found Flatbed Red. So there we are. I
Right.
came up with it myself.
Right. Well, your hair does have a little bit of red going on too, yeah?
Yeah,
Is that
nothing
nat
to do. I have a box truck.
right? Now,
So
a box truck, but you do have red hair. Is that natural?
no comment. This part's natural. Oh yeah, they can't see this, but there's a big old white streak in my hair. That's definitely natural.
uh, Miss Flatbed Tulsi, the Hawaiian politician Tulsi Gabbard with her like silver streak.
People
Yeah.
pay big money for that. So yeah, I'm definitely not letting that go away.
Right. So, Miss Flatbed Red, you're well renowned for painting trucks. You're also a musician. We just discussed you teach people how to play piano. You're quite the artist. So, could you maybe tell us how did you get from, what's your sort of personal background and what's the through line from being whoever you were before Flatbed Red? um, Learning music and painting. I mean, some of your work is just incredible, and then
Thank you.
I don't believe you started out doing trucks, so maybe you could tell us that story.
Yeah, for sure. So I have always had to fight between choosing art or music. I mean, you shouldn't have to really decide between them, I guess, but through college, I was trying to figure out how I could combine the two. All of my, so I studied music in college, music education, and all of my music, not all of them, a lot of my music professors suggested that I pursue art because as they have been in the music career, they're like, you'll have more chance as an artist, blah, 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 like whatever. So I was drawing portraits a lot in college to help just pass the time and make a little bit of money on the side. So I did graphite pencil portraits. I took a couple art classes in college, but whatever, got my music degree. Then I went on and did a 1 year art program in England. And it was like for people right out of college or out of high school, basically. So, like 18-year-olds, and then me who had just gotten my degree with all these 18-year-olds, very weird things that they were having us do in art class, like make a project on the word space. It's very weird, like one word prompts, very odd. Art school, yeah. So, art school was 1 year and
And what
done.
was
Did a math
so these kids are 18 and you're in your mid 20s already?
22.
22.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So they were just learning what it was like to be out of the house for the first time. Meanwhile, I am in another country by myself. I already did college. It was fun though. It was an awesome experience. And then I did a master's. I stayed in England and did a master's in music education. And then I moved back here. I married a guy who was into trucks. At the time, he wasn't a trucker. Um, and I worked at a local newspaper for a couple years, and I was still doing portraits on the side and pet portraits, paintings and drawings. And eventually, I go to a truck show. He's bad at introducing people, so I didn't know anyone at the truck show, and it sucked. I hated it. I'm never going to another truck show ever again. And he sold his trailer with living quarters because we only used it once and regret that deeply. Um, but eventually, I went to a show, Matt's in 2017, took a sketchbook, did some drawing. People talked to me. If I pay you, will you draw my truck? I had never driven it or drawn a truck at that point until that very day. And I would show you what it looked like, but the viewer listeners won't be able to see it. It was bad. I'll just say that. It was not great. It wasn't bad. It's just very not great. And
So
someone said, if I
I'm
pay you, will you draw mine?
I'm
Yeah.
gonna point people, seeing as how we're here and it's audio. if anyone's listening along and they're not actually driving and they want to see some of your handiwork, what's your website?
It's www.missflatbed.red. And I think the picture of the very first drawing I did of a truck is on my website in the gallery. So they can actually look at it and see how much it's changed. I won't say it was bad. It's just improved. Now I know what trucks are. and um,
Right. So you
yeah,
said you
so
you 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 met this dude and he's into trucks, but he's not a trucker at that
right
time.
at
Is
that
he
time, right?
now?
He was. So then he was restoring his uncle's Victorian house for many years. They were working on that and it's still a work in progress, but like museum quality restoration while people live in it. It's a lot of work. And then he worked for a US mail contractor, and the week after we got back from Matt's this year, he started a job at a truck parts place. So he is selling truck parts now. So if you're ever in Forest, Ohio, and you need truck parts, they'll deliver around the area. It's excellent. Ohio Surplus, give them a little plug.
All right, yeah, plug away. So,
Yeah.
you one of your famous photos that you've turned into t-shirts that I bought a couple of them for my kids, which they'll hopefully grow into, but for now they're just using them as jammies. It's got this it's a cab over with like a 26-foot box body on the back of it.
20 foot. Yep. It's a 1980 352 Peterbilt with a 20-foot stainless box that eventually will hopefully become like a little mobile art studio slash little camper RV. So
That's
yeah,
a
it's a
good
work
that's
in
a good that's a
progress.
that's a good dream. You could
Yeah,
like
it's a dream.
finance your travels by like just going to festivals and truck shows. And so you said you did caricatures and like portraits and stuff. Like that's the thing, you go to like some random, fall fair or town festival or whatever, and there's usually caricature artists around. It's sort of like a mainstay thing. Did you ever wheel and deal in that world?
So it's really interesting that you ask that because I actually never tried to do real caricatures, I guess, like that. I'm more of a realist artist, realism. And when it comes to people, at least. But the way I started drawing trucks was by going to shows and sitting outside with a little clear ruler and like holding it up and measuring the trucks from a distance and drawing at sight basically caricatures and trying to finish them in 2 hours or less, but caricatures are like 20 minutes. I've tried some 20-minute drawings. It was rough.
Wow. So, well, the thing with trucks is there's mostly, I mean, at least back in the day, it was mostly straight lines.
That's
N-
true.
Not as sort of curvy or a certain tone you have to try and get with a human face. I mean, trucks do have a personality, or at least they did. We can get into that later. But the effect you want to get with like a caricature is the same though, right? Like you sort of want to catch a vibe, whether it's the person or the object, and this object being the truck. But like being able to do that very quickly is a pretty good skill that not very many people have.
Yeah, I stopped doing that at shows though. I really like doing it, but I get sunburned way too easily. So part of the goal of the truck would be that I could sit in the truck at shows. But now that things have changed so much from that original plan, like I thought I would sit in the truck at shows, working from photos on my computer or something, drawing there. But now things have morphed, and I try to just work in my air conditioned and heated, temperature controlled studio. And then it shows I can just walk around and talk and take videos for YouTube and stuff. So it's a whole lot more chill now at shows.
Right. So you obviously you're very active on like Instagram and YouTube and whatnot. To my great discredit, I haven't seen your YouTube videos. What do you usually do on YouTube?
So my main format right now, I guess, I call them truck tours, and I do like a walk around video of the truck inside and out with a voiceover of the driver talking about everything we're looking at. And sometimes the driver's in the video pointing things out or talking or driving. But yeah, so it's just a general overview of the truck with all the info, the backstory, whatever they're willing to share, and no more, no less. So some videos are like a minute and a half long, and some are 15 minutes long. However long they're willing to talk, we talk.
Right. And how many of those walking tours of guys' trucks have you done?
Almost 200, I'm pretty sure.
Oh wow.
So, yeah,
Wow.
there are at least, I think at least 160 some, but I still have a backlog from maybe 5 or 10 videos I haven't shared yet. And then once the season kicks off here, I'll be at a show on Saturday. And throughout the summer, I'll have more and more. Hopefully, that'll be enough to get me through the winter next year
How many
and
shows do
back
you
to
do
next
in a
year.
year?
At least a dozen. Lots of local shows, but yeah, at least a dozen.
And so Matt's is obviously the biggest truck show in the land. What would be some other bigger ones? I mean, obviously it wouldn't be as big as Matt's, but
Size wise, yeah, Matt's is enormous. Truck number wise, the ATHS convention is generally 700 to over 1,000 trucks, and that'll be in Reno this year. And then next year's in York, Pennsylvania. So that's another great one for people traveling from all over the place to attend ATHS conventions. I hope to make it to Macungie in Pennsylvania hopefully this year, but it's the same weekend as the Kenworth 100th anniversary celebration here in Ohio, I'm pretty sure. So I'm a little torn. It's the first year I'd ever be able to go to Macungie, which is like 800 or 1,000 trucks there too. But Ohio's Kenworth here, it's so close and it only happens once.
yeah,
So
I was gonna say it's the Chillicothe assembly plant down south of Columbus there.
yeah,
Wow. And how far of a drive would that be for you?
and that'd still be about 2 hours or so. And I think it's 200 miles, two and a
Right.
half hours.
And so you do a lot of work. When I met you at Matt's, you were working basically in the same booth with the ATHS. I just so do you have like a history with those guys?
Yeah, so that was you happened to catch me in a meet and greet that I did on that Saturday just for a couple hours. I just sat up there to um, help draw some people to their booth and say hello to people from the internet in person. Hopefully, I got some more ATHS members signed up or renewed. That was my real goal. But my husband is a board member of the ATHS, so I've just sort of by proxy been getting involved with them. And I designed the poster for this year's convention and next year's convention also. I just finished that like last week. So yeah, it's and that's been cool too to be able to like for the poster I did some digital drawings, which was a nice first for me. I have an iPad that I've just been using for little things and digital renderings, which we could talk about later.
Right.
But I use
Well,
that for the
we,
whole poster. Yeah.
we could do that right now. So my little brother, Benjamin, who actually lives not too far from me, he never picked up the like hard grind trucking work ethic off my old man or from me, but he is very artistic and he works a lot in digital media. He designs snowboards and whatever you want basically, and he all of his work is done digitally. He doesn't
Mm-hmm.
sketch, he doesn't paint, as far as I know, or if he has started, he doesn't talk about it. He also doesn't communicate with me very much. He's a bit withdrawn. Hi Ben, answer your emails. Anyway,
Called out.
I'm gonna
Jeez.
send this to him just because an artist and an artist. And anyway, yeah, the digital stuff he does is pretty impressive given most people's idea of you're
Hey
trying.
Ben, this could have been you if you're an American chick who actually liked trucks.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know if he's ever drawn a truck for my old man or anything, but anyway, it's so you work with the American Truck Historical Society, and this is sort of like an interesting juxtaposition here, if I might borrow a term. You're using digital media sometimes with like very old analog trucks.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, the poster for Reno this year is a bunch of or three really old trucks, and I did it all completely digitally. Yeah. That's pretty cool. And then like the other thing that I've been doing more and more of recently is people will send me a picture of their truck or a couple cars and one house actually, and they'll tell me what they want to change on it. But before like shelling out all that money to the body shop or whatever, or to Lowe's or Home Depot, um, they have me digitally change the truck to look like whatever they want it to be. The paint scheme changes, the accessories change, whatever. Um, and I do that for them also digitally. So that's something I've been doing more of recently, and it's really cool and fun. So
Right. It's
that
interesting.
is,
It's
yeah.
interesting how they want to customize the image you're making for them, but that's not an actual representation of the actual vehicle. You're
But it
adding stuff
could
to it.
be. Right. So, like, before I had my truck painted, I did a digital rendering of it to try all different paint schemes to see what I wanted it to actually look like. Because it comes really close to actually what it will look like in the end. So, I've had one person come to me for, like, I want this paint scheme, but I have no idea what color I want. So, I'll send them 50 pictures of 50 different colors with the same paint scheme, and I can do like 50 colors of one scheme is maybe 20 minutes work. So it's something
Right.
I can do much less painfully than you paying the body shop for something you aren't quite sure if you like or not.
Right. I was gonna say, and
So
do you get asked to do a lot of that work where you're basically like somebody has a truck and they do want to design and do things with it, and they get you to do all these mock-ups? Like, is that a significant part of your work?
it has become more so, yeah, in the last 6 months or so. Because I mean, I just started doing it more publicly maybe late last summer. Yeah. Um, and I started a website and social media accounts. I'm really bad at the Facebook, but Instagram for it. It's called the Virtual Body Shop. So you can go to virtualbodyshop.com, or send an email to thevirtualbodyshop@gmail.com, and I can pump those out pretty quickly. So yeah.
That's awesome. And
Yes, it is.
so
It's fun. Thank you.
I I'm gonna ask a really it's not it might seem like a silly question, but it's going to a very serious matter. How often do you get asked to do sketches or these body makeups for like newer trucks?
Well, I'm actually right in front of me right now. I'm almost finished with a 389.
Okay,
But
389's
yeah,
exempted. Setting aside the Peterbilt 389 or Kenworth W900.
I
Or,
drew a Matt Granite pickup truck or dump truck, an acrylic painting of one of those
oh,
a few
really?
years ago. What else have I done that's newer? I've done plenty of new trucks. I just can't think offhand. I'd have to look at my list. But yeah, I've done all sorts.
Okay,
Mostly
but
old trucks just because of the people who follow my social media and all that, but I'm happy to do anything. And I still do portraits. If people want portraits,
right.
houses,
But with the
cars.
with the with the older trucks, I mean, obviously the Peterbilt 389 and Kenworth W900 maintain a certain look, right? Square HUD,
Hmm.
classic sort of American conventional tractor unit. But all none of the other manufacturers have done so. So, like you've seen it yourself when you're driving around on the interstate. There's a whole lot of like what I call sort of beige lozenge shaped mush, you know?
So what you're getting at is that when you said earlier trucks are mostly straight lines, they're getting away from that now, and I'm gonna have to start drawing sloped hoods and stuff.
Well,
That
no, actually, the opposite. I doubt it because, like, who wants to dress up something that at base is, do you sort of understand, like, art and design as, like, um, being kind of the times and an expression, right? Of
yeah.
feeling, of value, of objective beauty, right? And one of the things that I don't know, maybe I'm being paranoid, maybe this is just me, but like a lot of new truck design, it's of the times because it's like focused in part it's forced to by the government, but this like obsession with you know oh well we have to make everything aerodynamic for like better fuel efficiency, even
But then
though
when they fall apart so quickly, and then you have to replace them faster than you had to replace older trucks. So in short, you're actually wasting more in the long run.
You're right, but like
right?
as far as the aesthetic value I'm getting at here
And
is
they're
like
ugly.
A, they're ugly, and B, there's a million other different ways you could save money on fuel. But we're dealing with like, have you ever had a meeting with like truck designers ever? Like
I have not.
in your well, I mean, you're fairly well renowned, and in your capacity as somebody who captures these images and makes them, I would have thought like maybe like someone from one of the big trucking truck manufacturers would be
So,
like, "Hey, Red, what do you think about this design we're working on for
yeah,
2028 model year or something? Do you have any input for us? Has that ever
I
happened?"
wish they would give me input or ask for my input because I mean, I would think I would be nicer than some people maybe about design changes. I doubt I would be listened to necessarily, but being asked would just mean a lot. But like a few years ago, when was it? Like 2020 or 21 when that Edison Motors started to announce the idea of making an electric semi that didn't look like a new aerodynamic piece
Yeah,
of
so
plastic garbage.
it's awesome that you bring up Edison Motors because I had Chase Barber on my show a few months ago. He's the main guy behind Edison Motors.
Oh, well, when they started coming up in like the attention of people on social media, it was early on in my experience on TikTok, I think. So probably 2020 or one. And people kept tagging me because they wanted designs. Edison was asking for people to submit designs of how they wanted a truck to look pertaining to like their ideas or something. And so many people tagged me and I never did it because I had no idea where to start to actually like I had such a list of stuff I had to work on at that time. I was so overwhelmed
Well, I'm
and
gonna
it
make sure
was
to send this
yeah.
show to Chase. I'm gonna hook you guys up. So
Thank
I had
you.
Chase on my show. We went deep. We talked for like 2 hours about all things trucking. I mean, I'm originally from Canada. I live in upstate New York now, but Chase is out in BC, and Chase is also like a really good like backyard engineer. Him and his business partner have had some success with like other electric innovations, as it were, like adding solar panels to help offset load on remote diesel generator systems, and he's done all kinds of stuff, and he's pretty brilliant. He has a truck on his website.
It looks
It's
sort of like a Pacific. I think I
Yeah,
saw it.
well,
Yeah.
what they're doing is they're using old 1960s model Kenworths to put their new diesel electric systems in, but they're also planning on building frame up brand new trucks. And the one criticism I had of his design is like he's doing the same thing that Tesla's doing with like the cab, like right in the middle. The steering wheel is in the middle instead of offset to one side, right? Which I don't know if that's going to ever be accepted or like how many generations down the line it will become accepted because everyone drives or steers on one side of the road. It's been like that forever. And
And would you end up having someone sitting on both sides of you? Like would they put chair seats on either side of you or
well, this is what like I
yeah.
the Tesla truck only has the one seat, right? So
So how what?
I think from what I understand, I don't know, I haven't seen, but like there's not really a bunk because of like all the batteries and extra stuff, and it's just one seat. So I'm like wondering about like training and hitchhikers,
Yeah.
man. You gotta be able to pick up hitchhikers and friends of the road, like
I
there's
feel like you've reminded me of a car I saw at like the Henry Ford Museum ages and ages ago that had seven seats in it and they were facing different directions and it had weird doors and all this stuff. A car from probably the 40s or something that never took off. But I feel like it had a steering wheel in the middle, and that's a memory I haven't thought of in a long time. But it didn't happen. Whatever it was, that car did not take off. So if
okay.
history has taught us anything, steering
Yeah.
wheels in the middle. If that car had one, no one
Yeah.
wants it.
Did you ever have you ever heard of a guy named Buckminster Fuller?
I have and why? Remind me. I've heard the name, but I
Buckyballs, like geodesic dome buildings.
okay.
He was just this weirdo back in the 60s that was like efficiency everything, and he made this like really weird looking like trike 3-wheeled spacecraft looking van thing that went down the road. And you have to look up a video of it on YouTube. Like just type in Buckminster Fuller and van, and I can't remember if the steering wheel's in the middle, but like he was just this like bizarre futurist thinker guy from back in the day.
Have you ever seen a Robin Reliant? It's a little three-wheeled English car from probably the 60s.
No.
No, so there was an episode of Top Gear where they made fun of them basically, and it has one wheel in the front, two wheels in the back, and it's still offset drivers and passenger in the front. And he'd intentionally come up on corners and like roll the car over by turning too quickly because there's just the one wheel. And there's like a Robin Reliant club that got angry at them and like wrote a letter telling them that they didn't appreciate their cars being abused.
Oh man. Yeah, I have some friends of mine who run this podcast called Good Old Boys, and they sort of play on being southern. The one guy's in Florida and the other fellow's from Virginia. Bog Beef and Merrick, good day boys. And they borrow heavily from sort of popular perceptions of southern culture, and on their Twitter and their Patreon and stuff, they use the image of the General Lee, that Dukes of Hazzard car, the Dodge Charger. And one of the criticisms that like serious car people made about that show was that television show like wrecked 60 or 70 or 80 of them cars from all the jumps and driving like maniacs and all that stuff. And I remember,
but that should make them happy now because there are fewer of them because there were so many wrecks. So the ones that exist are worth more, right?
But I think that year of Dodge Charger, something like 330,000 of them or something got produced. Like there was an ungodly number of them around. I mean, that's not to say they're still around today, but speaking of, the older vehicles and older trucks, there's only so much production run of these vehicles when they're first built, right? And I'm sure, you've been around enough ATHS shows and you've bumped into like truck nerds and whatnot. Like, do you hear from these guys about how difficult it is to like get parts, how much fabricating they have to do on their own? Like, how much extra work do they have to do by themselves just to keep their trucks on the road?
Well, a lot of the antique trucks that would be at shows are just for shows. So some of them get hauled and don't drive around that much. So they don't need to necessarily be maintained as much as like work trucks would need to. But because you are a member of the ATHS, you have access to the network of other members, and they generally have large collections of things, including rare parts that you may not be able to access except through these members, someone who knows about these trucks. So by being a member, you can post on the social media, Facebook account or whatever, say, hey, I have this truck. I need this stuff. Can anyone help me? Or contact the ATHS directly and they can help you find someone. So it's a really good network. So to some extent, yes, of course, there are parts that are hard to find, but there are members who can help you find things that you can use that are new and like currently produced that might be able to fit your needs, or they can get you your build sheet for your truck if you don't have it to help you find part numbers, or they may already know the part numbers, or they may already know someone who's reproducing those parts. So in short, if you have an old truck, join the ATHS and it'll be less difficult to find those parts.
Right. That's good information. If I ever get an old truck, I will be sure to sign up. I bought a couple.
You can still sign up if you just like old trucks too.
Oh, good. Oh, that's something to consider. I bought a couple of coloring books that they have for kids, which I believe you did the sketch line drawings for the children to fill the colors in.
I sure did. That was my first experience with my iPad when I bought it, and I had never used a tablet before, and I felt like a toddler being given a crayon for the first time, and I couldn't figure out how to use the Apple Pencil. It was a mess. I've learned though. Since then, I can do much more refined things. But that was
Right.
my learning curve.
Right. Well,
That coloring book.
that was really excellent. It's a really
Thank
good
you.
coloring book. My kids love it. They love the truck shirts. I've done this. I've gone to a couple of different truck shows now since I've had my children, and I always end up getting them little mini, trucker t-shirts, and they love it. They love it. They wear them for pajamas. They wear them outside. They love those shirts. So
Well,
um,
trucks are colorful and cool looking, so why wouldn't all little kids love them,
I mean,
right?
more of them should be. I get so annoyed with the
Mm.
sort of beige sameness out on the road in year of our Lord 2023. How did you? So you spent some time in the UK studying and working on music. This was before the trucking interest came along.
Yeah,
So
that
you
was
do you recall while you were there in your travels just like absorbing like any UK or European truck culture at all?
so the weirdest trucking related experience I had in the UK was in like May of 2015. I was in Northern Ireland. I went back to the town that my dad's family had come from like 3 generations ago, 4 generations ago, and I was in my Airbnb, which was really close to the main road through the town I was in, and I heard all this commotion. So I go outside, and commotion in Northern Ireland still in 2023 isn't always a good thing. So I grab my camera and I run outside, and I see a sign, like a big barricade on a street that said, it's something police, something, I don't know, whatever. But I kept going. Like, again, not a good thing you want to see in Northern Ireland. And it was like hundreds of semi trucks driving through town trying to break some world record for the longest convoy or something. So it was a bunch of plastic cabovers, a bunch of Scanias and stuff, driving through this town, honking their horns incessantly. And that was 2 years before I ever really got into trucking, but it was hundreds of them. Very strange.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, honking is now associated with the Freedom Convoy in Canada, given the it got called the honkening, the honklitude, because all of these trucks descended on the nation's capital, and the sort of rallying cry against Justin Trudeau and his mandates and basically utter destruction of Canadian society was the air horn, which I love it. I'm honk 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 all day long. That
Well, I mean, your national bird sounds pretty similar, so
There's a great little meme. I'll have to send it to you of so are you aware of like apus and groypers, the little frogs that are kind of used as a they're like a sort of symbolic of like not accepting regular culture propaganda from the regime. Some people like to say it's alt-right, but those people have no idea what they're talking about. It's just these innocent little frogs. So somebody made a picture of one of these frogs sitting on the back of a Canada goose, and he's holding a huge Canadian flag above the goose, and there's like a honk honk.
yeah, I have not seen it.
Yeah, I'll have to send that to you. So it's interesting when you just said about the Irish convoy you witnessed, and you said plastic European trucks.
There were like 3 antique trucks, 3 old Volvos or something, but that was it. Everything else was new.
Right. Yeah. Or new appearing. Yeah.
Right.
A lot of what's interesting is in trucking culture here in North America, cab overs aren't really widely used anymore. I think Kenworth stopped building them here in
2000 something.
2005, somewhere around
Yeah.
there. And the company I used to work for in Canada used to buy like exclusively at one time their entire fleet was cab over Kenworths because
Is
cab
it
overs.
paddock? I see your
Yeah,
hat. I see your hat. Yeah, I have not drawn a paddock truck, but I have seen them at the Clifford show.
yeah, they're pretty sharp, eh? And they have a very unique color scheme, and it's been the same since like the late 1970s. They're sort of like a legacy small
Did I freak
family
you out when I
carrier.
said that? Did you wonder how I knew who you worked
No,
for?
no, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, I see their trucks down here even occasionally.
Their reputation precedes them. My dad still drives for them. I worked for them for many years. That's where I got my start when I was a kid. I washed trucks, helped the mechanics, worked in their body shops, sandblasted trailers, replaced flatbed deck boards. When I was 16 one summer, that's all I did. I fixed like 25 different flatbeds. I got sick of drilling and putting new screws in. But yeah, the cab over thing between Europe and the US and America, like there's a thing here where drivers sort of think they're unsafe. Like if you ever get in a collision, you're the first one there, which is
I delete those comments on YouTube. I'm so sick of those. Like, just don't hit anything. No.
Yeah, well, sitting behind the engine's only going to buy you a couple extra more seconds or half a second or something, right?
And if your truck is on fire, you have problems no matter where the engine is.
Yeah, so. Exactly. And so there's this, everybody here kind of assumes that cab overs are a European thing because they've kind of been dying off here, even though, you know, in the 70s and 80s, cab overs were probably still like half the trucks on the road, maybe more. Mm-hmm. And I'm just curious, like, what's the breakdown on all of the drawings you do, cab over versus conventional?
I never thought of that. That's a really good question. So I made a poster that I never actually made. Like, I designed it, but I never printed it, of the first like couple hundred trucks that I drew, however many fit. They were each really small. So that would be a good way for me to go back and count them. I'll have to get back to you on that. But I have drawn a lot of K100s. I will say that. Lots and lots of them. But I would probably say 2/3 conventionals is my guess. 1/3 cab overs.
Right.
Probably.
And in your travels and dealings with ATHS, given that cab overs were a much bigger deal in the past, there's a lot of older cab over trucks still kicking around, still doing like the show circuit.
For sure.
Tends to be sort of older guys that are into them as well.
Well, I don't know. There are more younger kids who are actually getting into cab overs right now too. There's like a surprising number of guys in their 20s who are looking for cab overs. I mean, people want older trucks right now just so they can avoid e-logs, right? And all that.
Well, so, I get the whole e-log thing and the emissions mandate thing. And, you know, I have to wonder how long until our overlords just declare all those trucks non grata, period. And, you know, any effort we might put into that gets sort of swept away. But I think I don't think it's all just avoiding the ELD mandate and old emission systems. I think there's an aesthetic draw to having an older truck that you worked on yourself that speaks to something kind of lost in culture in America and Canada. And that, like, there's, you know how if you look at copy for, you know, any person offering a truck service, whether it be like lawyers, accountants, you know, oversized load permit services, anyone doing anything for the trucking business, usually they're like their website, their company's logo, the design, their t-shirts, everything will have like a classic sort of conventional looking truck, right? Like everybody understands that that's what trucks are meant to look like.
That's what people like. I feel like you are really, really observant, and I'm feeling like an unobservant person by a lot of the observations you have pointed out to me today.
Well, you know, this is what happens when you're on the road and you got too much time in your own head, as my aunt would put it. But like, for real though, like when everybody understands that that's how we associate trucks with that particular image, but then the flip side of that is all the newer trucks, none of them look like that anymore, right? It's this like weird dichotomy. And the younger guys that understand this, the older trucks speak to them and they want to have that older equipment, right? Because that's how they understand what it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be the new beige aerodynamic bugmobiles, right?
Nostalgia and maybe hearing stories from their parents or grandparents. And I'm glad to know that there are people who are still interested in and fixing up old trucks, because you're very right. It is pretty boring to just see the same things on the road all the time, a bunch of white and maybe occasionally a lot of blue trucks that all look the same.
Well,
Fair.
what's funny is you may I notice something about your appearance? You've changed your hair since Matt's. I think at Matt's
I just didn't curl it.
Okay, yeah, at Matt's your hair was a lot curlier, and you certainly stood out, which is like like you understand the importance of aesthetics, like, and like your customer base understands that the people that want you to do these drawings, everybody you met at ATHS, and like I don't want to be like Mr. Longing for the past or anything, but like aesthetics is important, right?
Right. That's
Like
very true.
it cuts across all different avenues, right? And when
And
it
you have to stand out, right? It's boring to be boring, isn't it?
right,
Maybe,
exactly.
yeah. I think we're both a little bit extroverted. Maybe introverted people like being boring. I don't know. That's on them. But I don't know. I mean, it's also something to do with taking pride in what you own or what you drive. And maybe because there are so many fewer owner operators now, because it's been made so tough for them to be owner operators and be able to have their own aesthetics obviously integrated into their drive and their ride and be proud of what they have. Now it's just a bunch of big huge fleets trying to destroy everything and make everyone in their swim around in the ugly pea soup of the highway.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure who's all to blame for that. Usually it comes down to the, government mandates and then economies of scale, right? Like if the government tells the truck manufacturers we expect this and this, and then Daimler Benz is like, okay, cool, well, we're gonna make however many thousands of Freightliners, then they just all kind of have to look the same. You got economies
But
of scale.
and then the big fleets are the ones beating down laws for like regulating speed limits and all of that nonsense, because the smaller fleets who could have faster, nicer, prettier trucks didn't have to charge the outrageous rates of big huge companies, so they cut down on their expenses and they can pay people less and they can charge people less, so now
There's
they're beating down all the little
Yeah,
people,
yeah,
little companies.
and you're speaking to a phenomenon called regulatory capture, where large players in a market will actually back the government in its pursuit of heavily regulating something because, with their size, with their economics of scale, they can afford to comply, and they know that their competitors are going to have a tougher time with the
Mm-hmm.
cost of compliance. Yeah,
And that's
and
called being a crappy person.
yeah, yeah,
It's mean.
that's a diplomatic way of putting it.
Yeah.
Right. So you're picking up what I'm putting down about aesthetics. So I'm assuming you don't get too many commissions to like paint a Volvo or like like
I don't think I have ever drawn a Volvo. I don't think in 300 and some trucks.
and no disrespect to Volvo, like I'm sure they go up and down the road, they move things, they work to a point. They're just not that much to look at, right?
Well, it's the pride in your ride thing. So are the people who are driving them proud of their truck enough to be putting it on the wall above their fireplace?
Maybe not. Oh, that
Yeah.
reminds me. Did you have so um truck decorations? There's a little thing that like even some Volvo drivers do, which I think is I think it came from France, but the Quebec, a lot of guys in Quebec do this. They have they have like a little Michelin tire man guy like on the mirrors or the air intakes, or like otherwise
I
mounted like above the cab. Have you seen that?
I I feel like I was told that's a thing from the 70s, and I have seen it once on a truck in Toronto in November last year. It was a cab over. Was it? I think it was a K100, And it was all dolled up and all this. I mean, it was relatively rough, but it clearly had been well loved at some point, and it had little Michelin men on it.
Right. Well, the Michelin
So,
Men thing is it's usually the Quebecers that do that. And I have seen Quebecer Volvos with the Michelin Men. So like there's some of those guys out there that are still trying to stand out or do something interesting.
mhm,
So fair play to them.
right. Yes.
What took you to
Anything it
Toronto?
takes. I was there visiting with a friend from England because it's like $300 cheaper to fly there than it is to Detroit, which is my closest international airport. So we met halfway. I mean, not halfway. I mean, I drove 5 hours and she flew 7 hours maybe. But yeah.
So you still maintain pretty close contact with folks in the UK?
Yeah, she's one of my best friends. We still talk pretty often. And last time we visited over here was in New York City, and I've gone back there a few times. But yeah, a few friends have come here to Ohio. I've met other ones in New York too. So yeah, we stay in touch.
So how do you find the question I'm about to ask is based on a broad, sweeping, generalized assumption that's got its obvious exceptions, but like being an artist and a musician, and then you have the sort of world of trucking. You know, there's lots of like guys in trucking that are like also country music artists and they play guitar, and there's all sorts of musical people around. But like generally speaking, trucking's a leans a bit conservative culturally. So like sort of how do you find, being your sort of artistic background and then rolling with like a somewhat conservative culture?
I am so glad that you asked this and that you are asking it now because I totally forgot this was one of the ideas you had as a question, and I love it. So the short answer is it's I go to truck shows and you go there to talk about trucks, not to talk about politics. And
Well,
if
I
something,
don't mean
yeah,
conservative
I know, but
politically, but like
I know, but anything that's different from whatever, I would just walk away, obviously. But I mean, I come from a background of if you asked me what kind of music I like as a music student, I would say I will listen to anything at all except rap and country. So my taste in music has changed. I won't say dramatically, but I am much more willing to listen to more stuff now. I have friends who are country music people. Like I always say hi to Tony Justice when we're at shows, or Long Haul Paul lives not too far away from me, so I see him around shows here. But like,
Long Haul
there's
Paul
country
called me
music.
this morning while I was making breakfast for my kids. I was supposed to call him back today. I forgot to call him back too, and then I was late getting you on the Zoom here. Oh, I'm just falling
There's
apart.
your reminder. It's all good. I'm sure he won't hold it against you.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I'm much more willing to listen to different things now, and I have had my eyes opened in some ways by entering this world, and I hope that I have helped open the eyes of some other people too. Like I knew getting into this, specializing in drawing trucks was not going to be the easiest exactly because I'm teaching a lot of people who probably don't have much fine art experience, professional fine art experience, or talking to an artist about commissioning work. That's new stuff for a lot of these people, right? So I have been very patient in how I hope I've been very patient in how I've taught people about art. Um, and flexible with what they want. Because I mean, again, it's not like drawing people. It's sort of like drawing people, but like I have to be super duper precise. If I forget something, they'll notice that it's missing, etc. And I've had to learn what these things are, so I know that they have to be in the drawing. I've learned what can be included or has to be included, and what I can sort of isn't so important necessarily.
Don't forget those air cleaners.
Well, the one I'm doing right now, as it's in front of me, almost finished, is the first drawing I've done in colored pencil at night or at dusk. So the lights are on the truck, and the truck is white. So I drew it on white paper, which white on white isn't necessarily a problem. But then how do I make it look like the lights are all really on? I wasn't going to give it a background, and now I've had to darken everything. So there's a learning curve for me too. And it's pretty cool. I'm happy with how it is. It's not quite done, but soon.
I was gonna say there's a lot of chicken haulers out there that have refrigerated trailers with like a million lights down the top, the bottom, along the back. How often do you get commissioned to do a truck and trailer combo?
Pretty often. Let's see. It's a lot of bobtails, but maybe I don't know, at least a quarter, maybe a third of what I've done is with probably a third or more of what I've done is with trailers. This is a bobtail, but I've done a lot in both varieties. Yeah.
So what
Cattle trailers are really hard.
well, there's the detail on them because of all the holes in the side, right?
It
Um,
sucks.
yeah. Well, just wait until my show is syndicated in Australia. These guys started their own truckers radio thing, and they have like an app you can put it on your phone, and they got music and stuff. And they asked me if they could use my show as content, and I just gave it to them, sure, because why not?
Awesome. So
And
it's like 24 hours truck content
yeah,
sort of thing?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the Australian on the road. It was started out as a podcast. These guys, Mike and Yogi.
Oh, I met them at Matt's.
Yeah, Yogi was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, where I was going with that is if you get a commission from Australia, you're gonna have to do 3 trailers. You might have to renegotiate your rates.
Well, I will let all of my Australian followers with their land trains know that I do have a like how long is a 40-foot long roll of paper sitting behind me. So I could almost draw like life-size sort of things too, right? Yeah.
Very good.
I haven't used that roll of paper yet. But yeah, I have
Very
high
good.
hopes.
It's interesting too how like the trucking world is so small in a way, even though there's millions of trucks on the road in the US. I think there's 3.5 million jobs in the United States that require a CDL. Some of them aren't necessarily trucking, a lot of them are local. And I think they estimate there's 1.8 million long haul truckers in the US, but it still feels like something of a small community at times.
It does. It does. But maybe that again comes back to the ones who are proud of what they do. And it's not just a job, but it's more of their lifestyle, right?
Yeah,
So
a lifestyle and identity, a culture that they're very, very much attached to. I think
it's probably a good thing there aren't 1.8 million trucking podcasts, is what I'm saying, right?
I mean, there's a few of them. One of the funny things I found after I'd never been to Matt's before, and I don't really. I'm a very busy working parent, right? Like I work, 55, 60, 70 hours a week sometimes. My wife's a teacher. I have a 5-year-old daughter, a 3-year-old daughter. Like I'm busy. I do not have time to watch YouTube videos. I don't I was on Facebook for many years, which left a bad taste in my mouth. So I'm not really a big social media guy. I have a Twitter account mostly for pimping my writing. So I don't know about a lot of social media world. Yeah, that person's got 800,000 followers. And I'm like, who's that? Like, I have no idea. It's just
I've
sort of
experienced that too. And I
it's
feel bad when that happens.
yeah, well, it's just like there's this whole world out there that's part of my world that I don't even know about.
That's very true, but I don't blame you.
Okay.
Stay out of it. Yeah. Stay out of it.
Yeah, my
Yeah, I don't watch other YouTube videos really. I don't have time because I mean, I have 25 piano students and I could easily double or triple that if I had the time in my life. And it's basically I talk the whole lesson because there are a lot of little kids, right? They play, but a lot of talking. So when I'm not doing that, I'm sitting here drawing or editing YouTube videos or preparing for lessons or like active in the group of other teachers here in town. Yeah, so I get it completely. It's a time thing. Like I'm lucky to have enough time to take care of myself.
well, on that note, thank you for giving me and my listeners this time to tell us a little bit about yourself and your drawing and your experience in trucking and with truckers. and especially the American Truck Historical Society. I really like those guys. I like that there's this group out there trying to, maintain that culture, maintain the aesthetics of old trucks. This is something that like shouldn't just be forgotten and swept away under our new beige aerodynamic sameness. I really dig it. So tell everybody where they can find you, all your different social media websites. Where do folks find you?
My website is www.missflatbed.red. There's no .com in there. And then I have Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. And if you just search Miss Flatbed Red, you'll find me on all of those places also. So, yes.
Awesome. And I remember at Matt's, you had like postcards and stickers. Like you don't just have full on wall mount drawings, right?
Right. So you don't just have to come to me to commission artwork. I also have t-shirts and hoodies. I just have a couple designs right now because space is limited in my studio. Prints, greeting cards. I do a run of calendars every year, late in the fall, December. Coloring books, I still have some of those left. I want to make a new one here soon. I have been planning a children's book for years. I just need to sit down and illustrate it. But yeah, that's all the stuff that's available. And hats right now. That's what's in my shop.
Awesome.
Plenty of things.
So lots of like gifts and stocking stuffers. I mean, Christmas will be. I mean, it's only May, but
it'll be here soon.
Yeah, time flies when
unfortunately.
Time flies when you're having fun and when you're very busy
getting old,
but also being busy, being productive as you are.
That's true.
Yeah. I really dig your work, and I'm going to encourage everybody to go and check out your stuff. Your website's awesome. Your gallery of all of your work is amazing. I highly encourage everyone to go check it out, and buy some stickers. Commission a drawing. I'm gonna get you to do one for me. I have to.
Thank you.
I just have to. Well, I want to get like my wife's school where she teaches, so I'm gonna like have a little family. There probably won't be any truck in it. It'll probably just be like me and my wife and my kids in front of her school. That's kind of where we're at now.
That's pretty cool, though. I like it.
I haven't quite worked out all the details yet, but yeah, everybody get Flatbed Red to make a drawing for you. She's excellent and super high quality stuff. Go check her out. Thanks for listening. Any parting thoughts?
I really enjoyed this. That time flew by. That was great. Thank you. That's all I can say.
All right. Well, thank you, Miss Flatbed Red. And yeah, way of the road.